Ben Mwasinga, Manager, BEU. The South African Heritage Resource Agency is established under the National Heritage Resources Act of 1999. Sahra is established as the national structure that is responsible for the coordination of heritage management in South Africa. As an agency of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, we are tasked primarily with the identification, promotion, conservation and protection of heritage resources in South Africa. Sahra was officially established in the year 2000, even though the Act was promulgated in 1999. And as such, 2020 marks a significant milestone in the history of Sahra, as it is 20 years of our existence, challenges and celebrations. South Africa has an abundance of heritage resources spanning a history of over thousands of years, from the presence of the first peoples in our country to the present date. Our resources are extremely varied in terms of typology, as well as the period in time in which they were established. And as such, we have multiple business units that assist us in realizing our main mission, which is the unification of all people in South Africa through heritage. As such, we have core business units that implement specific acts of the NARA on behalf of the South African Heritage Resource Agency. And those business units are namely archaeology, paleontology and meteorites, burial grounds and graves, the built environment unit, maritime and underwater cultural heritage, as well as the heritage objects unit. Further to this, we have supporting units that assist the core business units in realizing their objectives. And those units are the National Inventory Unit, the Heritage Protection Unit, as well as our Heritage Properties Unit. Sahra was established in the year 2000. However, heritage resource management has existed in South Africa since the early 1900s through the National Monuments Council. The National Monuments Council was a centralized body that managed heritage from a national perspective, and therefore only focused on the tangible aspects of heritage, such as your brick and mortar and archaeology. Sahra, when it was established, in reflecting the democratization of our constitution, established a heritage management system that was 3 tiers. Heritage was therefore meant to be managed at a national level, provincial level, and a local level. So while we have seen a lot of successes over the years, we have been confronted with multiple challenges. One of our biggest challenges is the establishment of functional heritage authorities at a regional level. This ultimately means that with very limited resources, Sahra has had to fulfill a function that was meant to be implemented at a provincial level. The biggest challenge though with this is the people in South Africa, who therefore then do not have a regional representation and furthermore local representation in order to identify and conserve their own heritage resources. One of the biggest and most critical challenges, not just facing South Africa, but also internationally, is the transformation of the heritage landscape in various parts of the world, but more specifically in South Africa. As mentioned earlier, the National Monuments Council, which was an apartheid structure, only focused on brick and mortar heritage as well as archaeological remains. What this essentially means is that any heritage which might be intangible and which may speak to indigenous knowledge systems where Africans primarily express themselves was left behind and overlooked. As such, we have a heritage landscape that is skewed towards European and colonial heritage, while we as Sahra attempt to transform that through identifying and declaring heritage resources that speak to the greater population, but more importantly from previously ignored groups. 2020 is an important milestone in the establishment of Sahra, as it marks 20 years of our existence. The COVID-19 pandemic, which started in March, has brought into focus greater social issues outside of just heritage management. For example, gender-based violence has been a critical issue in South Africa for more than the last 20 years. Further to this, the history of this country is one that is steeped in racism, and therefore racial identity and identity politics has become a critical focus in South Africa currently. There has been outbreaks in America and Europe specifically, with people with massive public calls for the removal of offensive colonial statues or figures that were associated with slavery and racism during that period of time. This has also been something that South Africa has not been able to avoid. But further than that, one could argue that the issue of statues being removed from the public domain is something that began in South Africa in 2015 through the Rhodes Must Fall crisis. While Sahra has focused primarily on the identification and declaration of heritage resources that represent marginalized groups as well as the indigenous peoples of the South Africa, such as the Khoi, San, and Griqua groupings. What we have not done is to follow a holistic approach in terms of transformation. While we declare and identify sites that may speak to the histories of marginalized groups, there still remains the figures and statues of individuals that some may say are contentious. This brings us to a very, very important juncture in the history of the country, as the decisions that we make in 2020 will have an impact over the next 20 or possibly even 100 years in terms of how heritage is represented in South Africa. One of the biggest successes for Sahra in terms of transformation of the heritage landscape is the identification and declaration of previously ignored heritage resources. We look at the House of Nelson Mandela at Drakenstein Correctional Services. This space was meant to confine one of Africa's greatest leaders, but now it is a space that we identify for resilience and a space in which apartheid was actively imposed by this one great individual. Further than that, we have begun to now look at the histories of indigenous peoples such as the Khoi and the San and the Griquas. With that, we are now declaring the Rattelgat monument as a national heritage site. So one of our greatest and most celebrated aspects of Sahra as it stands is a very responsive and very capable declaration and identification system. While we may be able to identify these previously ignored histories, what we have not done is to address the histories that still remain in the public domain, which has led to this contention amongst controversial statues, colonial statues, and statues that may have represented apartheid figures, as opposed to our current system, which only identifies those aspects of our national estate that speak to our universal values in a democratizing state. Which brings us to our topic for the day, which is the transformation of the heritage landscape in South Africa. All right, we do apologize. We understand that there was an issue with the sound. As we still adapt to these technologies, we are running into a few technical areas here and there, but we will try to make sure that it runs as smoothly as we can. Our team behind the scenes is working very hard. But without any further delay, I would now like to introduce Advocate Lungisa Malkas, the CEO of Sahra, who will be basically representing Sahra and introducing all of you to Sahra today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning, dear colleagues. Mine is going to be very, very, very short because I want us to get to the program. The South African Heritage Resources Agency, Sahra, and the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, Cput, are in pursuit of advancing the management of significant spaces and heritage structures on the African continent. Sahra, as the national regulatory body for heritage resources management, is interested in further integration of its national management framework and is actively seeking partners that can assist in the mutual advancing of the strategic objectives of each partner institution. Cput, as an academic institution, has taken a keen interest in conservation management, specifically as if it relates to the built environment. Over the years, Cput has begun to undertake innovative research in conservation management in a wide range of study areas, such as structural engineering, geographic information systems, cartography, surveying, and 3D modeling. Through the years, Sahra and Cput have collaborated on a number of projects and have decided to formalize that relationship in order to fully maximize the areas of synergy between our two institutions. As the world continues to battle against COVID-19, the year 2020 has prompted a global rethink on how to manage our daily lives, but also how to manage those heritage resources that we are mandated to protect. This has presented Sahra and Cput with an opportunity to extend the invitation to other role players and interested parties to contribute on how this advancement in heritage conservation should unfold. This webinar is a platform that will highlight the areas of mutual interest between our two institutions. It will explore avenues that may incorporate academic research in addressing needs in heritage management, as well as the continuous building of skills for the heritage sector. The key purpose of the webinar is to fully explore all areas of mutual collaboration between Cput and Sahra that will inform development of future heritage research center with Cput. But most importantly, the webinar will also seek to invite potential new partners to join in with Sahra and Cput to broaden our network and join these collaborative efforts. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that very detailed welcome, CEO. Now we're going to be moving on to the main session of today. And as mentioned, the main session of today is to highlight the areas of research that Cput is currently involved in that also contribute towards heritage management in South Africa. So if you are a representative from an academic institution, I would imagine at this particular point you might be quite paying a lot of attention right now and might be a bit excited. I myself am excited to present this particular research from Cput to you all. You have received our program. There have just been 1 or 2 changes to that program. We are waiting for the Deputy Vice Chancellor from Cput to join us in studio, so he will be addressing us towards the end of our session today. But also Dr. Motala, who is a bit pressed for time, has asked for his presentation to be shifted from the last one to the first one. So Dr. Motala will be speaking after Dr. Palav. Now, for the sake of time and in order to keep the momentum going with this program of ours, I will now be handing over to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Palav from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. So today I'm just going to share the work at Cput which we did, and even we are going to share our future work or the project which is ongoing, as well future prospective work which we can take up with the SAHRA. So let me share my screen. Is it fine? I hope you can see my screen. So I'm just going to present an overview on this particular occasion. So myself, Dr. Kumar, along with Mr. Ben, is waiting for this moment since July 2018. So I am thankful to Cput for giving me opportunity to start the research on heritage structures, and also South African Heritage Resource Agency, SAHRA, for providing such platform and support to complete all those research. So the presentation, the outline of my presentation will be introduction to the heritage structures and its importance, research problem, journey of Cput with SAHRA, collaboration with SAHRA, future prospective work, and feasibility for Center for Sustainable Heritage, which we are planning as a pilot. So this is what we have planned for. So heritage buildings are quite important and they need to be protected to preserve our history for the future generation. And due to the external forces with human intervention and surrounding environment lead to loss of preservation of these unique history of South Africa, Africa and the world. So SAHRA is a statutory organization established under National Heritage Resource Act 25, 1999, is mandate to coordinate the identification of and management of heritage resource of the country. And Cput, an internationally recognized institute with SAHRA, started the journey to research on restoration and repair of heritage structures. So some of the important sites which exist as a World Heritage Site, which you can see in the list, and these buildings perform a vital role in a country's history, architecture, culture, religion, politics and economic growth. However, it is evident that they undergo deterioration as seen on the Castle of Good Hope and some part of Robben Island. Therefore, Cput as a fast-growing research and innovation university initiated the research on heritage structure with a master student, Ms. Loke, in April 2018. So while exploring the avenues, with the SAHRA, we met in July 2018, and it started with I think the coffee shop then, is it? So where my student was exploring to how to initiate this research. And then we had a meeting with them, and we discovered the need for protection of heritage building against in a better way to do the research on that and to repair them nicely and to protect them for the country, right? So we have thus far worked on some of the listed heritage building which you have seen here, and we sincerely thank the management of these sites and SAHRA for their cooperation. So which we have observed during this, so the repair with the modern material at Robben Island and Castle of Good Hope, there is a disparity in those materials, and because of that there is a problem for long lasting of these structures. So this raises a concern as what is going to happen to our heritage in 50 years time if the topic of heritage conservation and proper restoration is overlooked. So in that context we initiated, and with my HOD Ms. Ashadia, we had a meeting on 4th December 2018 at SAHRA. So where we discussed in that meeting, and they have SAHRA has given a well insight of the heritage building and the various different departments that they are handling. Further, they also make aware about other departments in Sahra, where Cput can collaborate with them. And this meeting was very fruitful, and they allow our master student to access the site with full logistic and other support as and when a student want to visit the site. So this is well initiated, and we are very thankful to them that they have shown the interest to do the research in this area. So the pilot project which we started in 2018 was on Castle of Good Hope and Robben Island, and even we have 2 BTech students which works on South African Astronomical Observatory and BOCAP survey, which was initiated by Dr. Motala, and now he is in UCT. And all these projects were completed in a record time with great satisfaction. So recently these two, the above which you can see is a completed project, and currently we are working on design and development of old cementing material for restoration of heritage structures with our proposed doctoral candidate Ms. Loke, which has just further initiated the work with her doctoral thing. Then deformation monitoring of old heritage structure, which will help us to know which portion of the building is deforming during the time. So this is one more project which we are doing right now with my master's student. Even we are going to estimate the mechanical property, that is like Young's modulus as well as Poisson's ratios, for these structures in order to model them in a finite element tool to know to better understand this structure. So these are some ongoing project which we are working with close collaboration with Sahra. So Sahra is in plan for creating a big hub on heritage where they have almost 7 units, and in which we are working closely with the built environment unit, and in that unit we are in process of like establishing a center to carry out the work in the material characterization and its development, so that we can repair the heritage with the similar kind of advanced materials, so that there should not be any disparity in them. Further, we also going to work on surveying and testing of all these heritage structures in order to prepare a 3D model along with the details, so that whenever we want to repair and restore these structures, we do have these 3D digital structures available with them. Further, we also want to go with the real-time structural health monitoring. This is all our future prospective work, so that we know what is happening to the structures. Even we can monitor them through CCTV or any additional sensors, so that we know exactly what is happening to these structures, and we also know where there is a problem in order to restore them. And yes, research unit is working in all those aspects. So this is a picture which I am showing you in order to share you that yes, there is a various other units where Cput as well as other university can collaborate to move further research on the heritage things, right? So in material characterization and development, my student is working closely with the aesthetic part as well as the physical, mineralogical and chemical as well as mechanical. So for each of these structure of different era like 1600, 1700, 1800 and even the new materials, we can prepare a nice material chart in order to show our like construction team that they have to be in line of these properties, so that the disparity of these materials should not be there, right? So we are in process to create a big catalog for such material within South Africa, and if further world like UNESCO and other organization help, we will definitely go for the African continent and sub-Saharan regions. So this will help, the material characterization will help us in order to repair them with the close or similar kind of material. Further, the surveying and testing unit, we are in process of like creating a 3D model for the units, and yes, these 3D model definitely going to help us when and where the structure is either deteriorated and wherever we want to repair them. So in order to repair these structure, we definitely need a very clear 3D models for these structures, and further it's internally what material is used in order to reinforce them. We can also get those things in detail, right? So the 3D wireframe of these structures will help us to know what exactly there inside the structure. So definitely these type of project, if we do for our heritage structures, for restoration and for repair purpose, these models will definitely help us, so we can preserve this model digitally. Further, we are also working to estimate, like 2 projects we are working on the estimation of mechanical properties, and these mechanical properties is going to help us to analyze these structures, right? So we have these deep scanning equipments and NDT testing with us, which is there at Cput. So we are started this project at Paul site, and 2 of our master students is working on NDT testing, right? So we are having UPV testing as well as rebound hammer testing, which will give an indication of the surface level hardness as well as a dynamic Young's modulus, which can further correlate it to the Young's modulus of this building, and we can put them in our FEM model in order to analyze this building. I'm here to show you just a sample example of entire 3D model which one of my PhD student did for a Senate Hall building in India. So I'm just showing here. So similarly we can model different structures, and we can even know what deformation and where the deformation is exceeding. Those things, those parameters we can observe digitally from this particular thing. If we do the real-time monitoring, yes, we can do a real-time deformation of these structures, right? So the collaboration with SAHRA will be on the research and the consultancy project regarding material and as well as the technology which we are going to do. And further, we are looking for establishing, the feasibility of establishing a center of sustainable heritage at Cput. So thank you for your patience. This is what we are working on, and yes, we also invite other universities to get collaborative work in order to protect our heritage buildings as well as heritage sites in South African context. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pallav, for that very detailed description of the nature of the work that's been done between Cput and Sahra. If you have any questions at the moment, please hold them. We will be having an open discussion on part 3 of our program. But as Dr. Motala has just highlighted, as Dr. Pallav has just highlighted, there are many areas of interest that exist between academic institutions as well as Sahra. Heritage management is not a state-led function as it was in the past. What we are realizing now in a globalized world is that we need to expand our partnership networks in order to achieve our mutual interest. Cput, the built environment section of Cput specifically, is looking at surveying, it's looking at 3D modeling, is looking at non-invasive testing of buildings. And how do we then incorporate that into achieving Sahra's strategic objectives, which is conservation of all heritage resources, but for today's purposes, we're looking at the built environment. I think Dr. Pallav has highlighted the many ways in which that is being done already at World Heritage sites, as well as some of our national heritage sites. So if you're a representative of other academic institutions, I think Dr. Pallav has just highlighted how the nature of the relationship between Sahra and Cput can exist, in which academic research is being advanced while we are also meeting very real conservation needs. With that said, one of the most pressing sites in South Africa that has provided us all with a large challenge is District 6. And Dr. Siddiq Mutala, who was formerly at Cput, now at UCT, has done a lot of mapping and surveying work. This is another relationship which yielded real-time results. We needed some active mapping to be done last year during our declaration of Boakap, and Dr. Motala provided us with a B.Tech student who did that mapping as part of his program. But just to further highlight the importance of the work being done at Cput, Dr. Siddiq Motala has been invited to present here today. I would now like to get him, he's joining us virtually from Microsoft Teams. Dr. Motala, are you with us?
Yes, hi Ben, I'm here.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. We can see you. Thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you in these platforms. I was just talking about the incredible work that you have done that you'll be sharing with us today. Again, Sahra is actively in the process of declaring District 6, and Dr. Siddiq Motala has done a lot of work in surveying and mapping in District 6. As we all know, District 6 was completely decimated during the forced removal. However, Dr. Motala has managed to identify certain areas where significant spaces existed. I think this is quite important research. I think it's quite exciting research, and it's another great example of a collaborative effort between Sahra and Cput. I'll now be handing over to Dr. Motala. Please take us through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, Mr. Masinga, Chair. I'm happy to see you again. And I'm also very happy to see see in inverted commas. I'm using this a lot in presentations nowadays, to see my CPUT colleagues. I'm going to show a few slides on PowerPoint, and then I'll play a video. So I hope this works. Lots of moving parts here. So let's give it a try. I'm going to share. Can you see that? My PowerPoint? Okay, great. Okay, so thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sadiq. I left CPUT at the end of September. I joined UCT in October, but I'm still very happy to contribute to CPUT. There was no animosity in the leave. I still have great respect for CPUT, and I want to partner with you and with Sahra in the future, especially with regards to District 6 research. And I'm loving this idea, Ben, of a transdisciplinary effort. So very quickly, I'll talk to you about the work that I'm doing in CPUT. I've got a long-standing relationship with the District 6 Museum. And one of the first projects that I was involved in with the District 6 Museum, this was more than 10 years ago, was with Linda Fortune. So if you can see that slide there, the bottom right is a picture of the cover of her book. She wrote this book called A House in Tyne, well, she calls it Tiny Street. It's actually Tyne Street, but that's how District 6s used to call it. I met her at the museum, and one of my students, the one on the top right there, he calculated the exact position of our house. And we demarcated the position using flags that you see in the picture there. And then the bottom left picture is Linda and her family. They returned to the site of our house. They didn't realize that it was actually located on the pavement right outside CPUT on Hanover Street, Keisergracht, Hanover Street. So the ex-residents sort of walked through the ghost of their house. And I've done this numerous times. I did this last week, in fact. An interesting thing that I wanted to show to you is that I went to the site of the Tafelberg Hotel, that's being excavated nowadays, and I found this. I don't know if you can see my camera. I'm showing it to you now. It's this little statue it's the head of a statue that I found at the site of the Tafelberg Hotel. So I'm not sure, Ben, what I must do with this. But we can speak about that later on, So what does one do if one finds an object that has heritage value? Anyway, that we can talk about later. The next thing that I do is I take people on walking tours of District 6. This is a picture of a conference that happened last year, and I combine maps and all photos on the walk. The bottom right picture there shows them standing in front of the Moravian Chapel. On campus, what it looked like pre-demolition. So that's quite powerful, for people to see it pre and then as it stands now. Another thing I do is I'm involved with filmmaking also. So this filmmaker, the bottom left picture from London, was interested in making a film about District 6 because his grandfather was from District 6. Then he moved to England in the 1960s. So I helped him to find the location of his grandfather's house, did a film, all of that. But I'm patiently waiting for the film to be released. And I'm also involved in producing and curating content. So I made a video about the history of District 6, which I think showcases my work, which I'll show you a little part of. The full 20-minute video is located on the District 6 Museum website. And the museum that is designing an exhibit, which was originally supposed to be based on my video. But of course, as you probably know, the museum is in danger of being closed down for financial reasons. So please support the museum if you can. So I'm going to stop sharing. Let's just see if I can do this. Stop sharing. Okay. Give me a second here. And let me start sharing the video. Are you all still there?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to share. Give me a second. Yes, where is it? Oh, there it is there. Sorry, let me just see if I can do this. Okay. Sorry, we're having technical problems here. I'm trying to find my video. Give me a second. Oops, that wasn't the video. Can you see that? Oh. You can hear it, but you can't see it. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just give it one last try here. Ben, sorry, maybe you can try and fill the dead air while I'm trying to work this out. If you can try and answer my question, perhaps. Or...
Sure, not a problem. All right. As Dr. Motala sorts out the video, we just noticed that we put out a notice that we have a better viewing on our YouTube link. I see a number of people have gone to YouTube. Please join us on Teams if you plan to join the discussion towards the end. However, if you're participating just to view, you may join us on the YouTube link, which was shared in the chat. It is a much smoother transition and video experience on YouTube. If you plan to join us for our open discussion at the end, you can then stay on Teams or join on Teams towards the time of that discussion. We'll just give Dr. Motala a few more seconds to sort out the video, but I'm sure a lot of you have quite a few comments and questions about the work he's doing at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, this is quite exciting for us. We are actively in the process of declaring District 6. As you know, it's a highly contentious site. It's been a highly complex site that is not just significant because of the heritage significance of the site, but there's also an active land restitution process taking place in District 6, which has further complicated our efforts to protect the site. But with that said, with the work that Dr. Motala is doing and with the nature of the relationships we've built with the former residents of District 6, as well as the new residents who currently are in District 6, we do feel that in the very near future we will come to the conclusion and declare the site. We have made a lot of advancements, and to make a very informal announcement, we have begun to also identify the existing sites that we can present for declaration. So I'll just check in with Dr. Motala to see if he's managed to get some progress. Dr. Motala, are you winning?
Ben, what I can do is I'm gonna share it on YouTube. I don't know if that will work. Hopefully, I've got a YouTube link here. Let me see if that one's gonna work. Okay, and hopefully that'll go. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's great. Can you hear anything?
Around the country at the will of the racist government.
Thank you.
Like the natives' land activists were precursors to the...
Sorry, Ben, what did you say?
No, everything's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to fast forward it because I know that it's a 20-minute video, but I'm just going to fast forward it to the bit that is perhaps more important.
Of apartheid's forced removals is in Cape Town. It was called District 6. The outline of the old District 6 is shown here in red. This was the area that was proclaimed a whites-only area in 1966. Cput's District 6 campus lies right in the middle of the site. What follows is a cartographic story of District 6. It is one of many stories, and is told with the help of GIS, or Geographic Information Systems. The Department of Civil Engineering and Surveying used to be located on this campus, but we were moved to Belleville campus. In our department, geomatic students and staff research the history of District 6 through the lens of GIS. GIS technology can help to produce an analysis of the old District 6 and its relation to the present. I want to take a trip through time using maps of District 6. Here is a relatively recent map from 2011 showing our campus and the outline of District 6 shown in red. The current road network is shown in green. I can switch that off and show in yellow the old road network that used to exist in District 6, most of which was destroyed. Now let's travel back to 1862. This is a map drawn by surveyor William Snow, one of the very first maps to cover the area of what would become District 6. About half of the area was empty land. The label on the map calls the area Kanala Dorp. Kanala is a Malay word meaning to help one another. Some of the familiar road names can be seen, like Hanover, Clifton, William, and Caledon. In 1867, it was named the 6th District of Cape Town, or District 6. Now let's go to the late 1800s. This is a map from 1890, showing the development of District 6 at that time. By 1900, District 6 was overcrowded. Cape Town experienced massive immigration, and many people initially settled in District 6 when they got here from all over the world. There were Jews from Russia, Indians, Chinese, Turks, Egyptians, Australians, and Scots. Additionally, there were local black people, as well as freed slaves who would have originated from Madagascar, West Africa, the Indian subcontinent, or Southeast Asia. They are our ancestors. The oldest aerial image we have is from 1926, a time between the two world wars. At the time, the government leaders were Jan Smuts and General J.B.M. Herzog. In 1927, the Immorality Act is passed. Its purpose, as it said, was to prohibit illicit carnal intercourse between Europeans and natives and other acts in relation thereto. Let me zoom into the southern part of District 6. This is Horsley Street, a very important street in the history of District 6. In the early 1900s, the growing black population in Cape Town concerned the white population, who felt that there was a need for a black location. Horsley Street contained many African dock workers from the Transkei who wanted cheap accommodation. This is what it used to look like. Horsley Street landlords willingly catered for this demand, packing large numbers of people into little houses. In February 1901, the plague broke out, and the Horsley Street blacks were quickly blamed to be the source of the infection. This paved the way for the first forced removals from District 6. They were made to move to Indabeni, Cape Town's first black township. Here is a picture of some of the District 6 evictees, confined in isolation at a military camp. They would then be moved to these tents in Indabeni. Also shown is a typically complacent official statement in a news report describing the situation. It was later found that the plague was caused by Argentinian fodder that was imported for horses during the Boer War. Behind campus, there is still a part of the original Horsley Street. A scar, a haunting. Here are the remains of Horsley Street today. It sits there, in a state of limbo, surrounded by bush growing on the rubble of the houses that were demolished over 40 years ago. In present-day Cape Town, there is a co-presence of multiple time zones, and we are still haunted by actions from over a century ago. Now let's go back to the GIS software. The next date to visit is 1945, just after World War II. South Africa was called the Union of South Africa, and in 1945, the Afrikaner-dominated National Party was in power, led by D.F. Malan. In the 1940s, the Cape Town municipality had started to make plans to demolish houses in District 6 under slum clearance. It was around this time that Sissy Gould served on the Cape Town City Council. A woman ahead of her time, she was called Cape Town's Joan of Arc. She was the first black woman in the country to serve in local government and represented District 6 in the 1930s, 40s and 50s. This was remarkable, considering that this was during a time when she did not have the right to vote. In 1962, she received an LLB degree from UCT, becoming the first woman of color on the Cape Bar. Let's go forward to 1953. As you can see, District 6 was fully built, and in 1953, the residents of District 6 did not know what was about to hit them. Some of the most repressive apartheid laws were promulgated in the 1950s, such as the Group Areas Act, the Natives Resettlement Act, and the Reservation of Separate Amenities Act. By means of the Population Registration Act, new identities were imposed upon people. People were now officially white, native, or colored. Colored was the most ambiguous term, comprising 7 categories. This new classification scheme gave voice to some and ghostly silence to others. Resistance leaders emerged all over the country. An important treason trial happens in Johannesburg in 1956. Many of the leaders of the resistance are arrested and charged with treason under the Suppression of Communism Act. Amongst the 156 arrested were Nelson Mandela, 1960s. By the early 1960s, although it was a crowded inner city area, it had a vibe that is still spoken about today. This footage of the people of District 6 in the 1960s going about their everyday lives belies the catastrophe that was being planned. This is what District 6 looked like back then. Everyday reality was about to become haunting memory. The next aerial image is from 1968. In 1966, the government declared District 6 a whites-only area under the Group Areas Act, with the removal starting in 1968. In 1968, the N2 highway is being built. In this image, you can see that most of District 6 is intact, apart from this section which shows where some of the first demolitions and forced removals happened. This was the block bounded by Caledon, De Villiers, Stone and Clifton streets. If I swipe the current imagery, you can see that it correlates to the location of the engineering building of Cput. Our building sits at the epicenter of the destruction. The Extension of University Education Act bans black students from attending white universities. The Cape Technical College was formed for white students and the Peninsula Technical College for colored students. These would later go on to become Cape Technicon and Peninsula Technicon. Other highlights or lowlights from the 1960s. Robben Island is turned into a prison. In 1962, Abdullah Ibrahim, or Dollar Brand, the famous jazz musician from District 6, goes into exile in Europe because of government harassment. Still called Cape Technicon. What happened in the 90s? In the Mandela government, there were two deputy presidents, Thabo Mbeki and F.W. de Klerk. Many discriminatory apartheid laws are repealed in the 1990s. South Africa wins the Rugby World Cup in 1995 and the Africa Cup of Nations in 1996. Let's go to 2011. Cput was formed in 2005 when the Cape Technicon and Peninsula Technicons merged. So what you see here is a 6-year-old Cput. If I turn on a layer of the old District 6 sites, we can work out where they are in relation to where we are today. On our campus is the location of important sites like the Hanover Building, the Little Wonder Shop, the Taj Restaurant, Westminster Cafe, the Post Office, and the Fish Market. The Star Cinema was here. The Public Wash House was here, with its elaborate machinery. It was built over a mountain stream, which may still be flowing underground. The Moravian Chapel is still standing, and it used to look like this. This is the location of the 7 Steps, perhaps the most iconic site of District 6. It was situated at the corner of Hanover Lane and Hanover Street. It was the very heart of District 6, and right now it is situated near an entrance to the admin building. Here is the rather sad-looking location of the 7 Steps today. Just outside the admin building is St. Mark's Church, which is still standing today, surrounded by Cput. We have been carrying out some collaborative research with St. Mark's Church, mapping baptismal records. Based on information contained in the baptismal records, we are able to put dots on the map, representing the homes of babies who were baptized at St. Mark's Church. Each yellow dot represents the location of a baby who was baptized in the 1950s. Every one of these babies were uprooted from their homes and were forced to move. This big green dot is Esther Cottle, who was one of the babies baptized in 1942. She lived at 70 De Villiers Street in this house, which was demolished. Here is a picture of Esther today. She is holding up her baptismal record in St. Mark's Church. After being forced to move to Mitchell's Plain, Esther contemplated leaving St. Mark's Church, thinking that it was a possibility she would no longer be able to attend. It wasn't long after the removals that her longing to return to her beloved church grew enough, and she and her children would make the long train ride between Mitchell's Plain and District 6. She did this for 32 years.
Okay, I'm going to end it there. It's a much longer video. It's 20 minutes, but you get the point. That's the sort of work I'm doing. And apologies for the technology that hasn't been working for me too well, but I'd like to hand back to you, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Motala. I think that is very compelling research. I think it's quite powerful research, and you know, when we speak of forced removals, we think of it in a very broad sense, but we never think of it on an individual level and the impact that had on an individual level. I really appreciate the work that you've done. I think I've told you this on numerous occasions. We will not be able to declare District 6 without your research, and you've always been willing to share on any platform, and you've also been very generous with your surveys as well as your GIS data. You are a friend of Sahra, a friend of Cput, and we invited you here today because the work you are doing at Cput, I hope, is ongoing at UCT. So thank you very much. I know you are pressed for time, so you won't be able to address any questions now. However, please share the link to the video on the chat. We're getting a lot of requests from that in our chat. And also the presentations that are being shown here today, just to our broader audience, will be shared as well with you. I'm quite happy that everyone out there is taking a lot of interest in this. And as mentioned, if you're coming from an academic institution or any other type of institute, and this type of work is of interest to you, please stay on. We will be having an open session later. But beyond that, a last thank you to Dr. Motala for that. We will now be continuing with our program. And please save any questions you have for our open session. Dr. Motala, we will now release you from the session, and we thank you for making time for us today. Without any further delay, I would now like to move on to the remaining two researchers from Cput. This particular student, Ms. Mapole Loke, I'd like to get her online first. Mapole, are you with us?
Hi Ben, I'm here. How are you guys?
I'm very well, thanks. It's good to hear your voice again.
It's good to hear yours too.
So this journey between Sahra and Cput actually may have began because of Mapole over here. As Dr. Palav said earlier, Mapole was the student who was looking to get access to a few sites, and she was brave enough to come to Sahra, and since then the relationship between Mapole and Sahra as well as Cput has grown to this collaborative or formalized collaborative agreement which will be signed today. So Mapole, I'm very excited to present your research. She was a master's student of Dr. Palav. I'm also happy to announce that she's since then been she is since then now a PhD candidate at Cput as well. The work she does speaks directly to the sites that we manage. She did her master's thesis at Robben Island as well as the Castle of Good Hope. So without taking up any more time, I'd like to hand over to you now, Ms. Loke, so you can present the amazing work that you're doing with Cput. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mansinga, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As mentioned, my name is Mapole Luke. I'm registered for doctoral degree in civil engineering at Cput. This is my first year. It is such a great honor to be presenting my research work at this prestigious platform. Like Mr. Mansinga explained, our journey with Sahra started in, I think, July 2018 when I was doing my master's degree. So since then, we have been traveling this journey together, and it is such a great honor that today, finally, something solid has come out of our collaboration, and the journey is finally, the dream is becoming a reality now.
She's online, I can check.
Okay. We seem to have a few challenges with Ms. Loke. We'll give her a second to see if she's able to rejoin us. If she's unable to join us, we will move to Mr. Rian Victor. Rian, are you there?
Good morning, Ben. Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you very much. If you can just be on standby.
She's back.
Okay. Ms. Loke, are you back?
Yes, sorry about that.
Not a problem. We understand. We all adapting to this technology. Sure. Are you able to present?
Yes, I'll just share my screen now and then continue with my presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, it seems that Ms. Loke is on mute and is unaware that she's muted. If you could just send her a message in the chat, and I will also. Hi, Mapole.
Yes, Mr. Masinga, am I back online?
Thank you. You are muted for that. I think you'll have to start from the beginning. We did not catch your presentation, but we are able to see the presentation. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Okay. As I was saying, I'm going to present my master's research, which took 2 years from 2018 to end of 2019. This research was supervised by Dr. Kumar, and it was co-supervised by Prof. Haldenbaum. So this is the outline of my presentation. I'll go through my introduction and then identify what was my research problem, the objectives I was trying to meet, and then the methodology I used to obtain such objectives. And then I'll take you guys through the results. And then I'll touch base on my proposed doctoral research. As Dr. Kumar already mentioned, mortar is a very important construction material. The reason why we chose to start our research on mortar is that mortar is considered a major construction material, especially for functioning and long-term existence of the heritage masonry. As we can see on Figure 1, this is the Castle of Good Hope. This photo was taken there back in 2019, and it shows some plants growing in between the stones used, which is on the mortar itself. And this poses a serious danger to the masonry of this structure. So, as also mentioned before by Dr. Kumar, mortar undergoes serious deterioration. Some of these deteriorations are caused by aging, some by environmental conditions, some by us as human activities also play a role in mortar deterioration. The problem that we identified was that for the restoration of heritage buildings, the restoration teams usually use the incompatible materials, which is the incompatible mortars, which results in quick or early deterioration on these structures. They do so because there is insufficient documentation of the design procedures. They don't know how to go about designing the proper compatible motors. Therefore, that results into early deteriorations. Also, there's insufficient guide for mixed designs during the selection of a suitable motor from the modern materials. As we all know, these heritage buildings have been existing for a several number of years. There has been changes on the materials. Modern materials have been developed all over and over. However, such materials do not match the old materials. Therefore, that poses a serious problem when it comes to restoration and conservation of heritage buildings. Therefore, damage to existing masonry is usually the case due to use of unsuitable mortars. The current problem that we, as we conducted interviews, as I went through the archives and the literature, we realized that the problem is identifying which material to use between the new and the old. For example, the literature would state that in early ages, lime was used as a binder, while now we use mostly Portland cement, which has different properties to the lime that was used previously. Therefore, this causes a conflict as to now, at this current age, what do we use to restore the old materials using the new materials? Therefore, my research was aimed to address this issue. I set out the following objectives. The first objective was to characterize the heritage cement materials, which is my mortars, from the three different eras, which is the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s. And after that, I'll go on and characterize the aesthetics, the physical, the chemical, and the mineralogical properties of such mortars. After characterizing these mortars, now the second objective was to form a standard guideline to be used for identifying the components of the original mortars. The research was an experimental research whereby I had to conduct a survey on the buildings that were my case studies, and then carried out analytical methods. Afterwards, I took the samples from the two heritage buildings and then carried out the laboratory experiments, and then I analyzed that data. Thereafter, I came up with a standard methodology that will help characterize such mortars. Out of all the declared heritage sites, we had to create a sort of a criteria where we selected only the Western Cape declared heritage sites by Sahra. Only the buildings that were constructed using stone or bricks were selected. And then we, as I mentioned on my objectives, we were looking at the 1600 era, 17 and 1800 era, and such buildings that we selected should have undergone previous repairs, and then we could see the original materials as opposed to the current repairs. And then we had to make sure that we'll be able to acquire the sampling permission from Sahra. We didn't want to cause any interruptions to the day-to-day activities of such facilities. And then afterwards, we had to identify areas that had deteriorations on the mortars. After going through that criterion, then we selected the Castle of Good Hope and the Robben Island. I'll just quickly take us through my methodology. First of all, we collected the materials using the permit from Sahra. As minimum material is possible, not causing any distractions or any damage on the existing structure of the wall. Afterwards, we carried out the color, because the main purpose is to restore the building to what it was before. Therefore, color plays a very important role. Therefore, we had to identify the color of the original mortar as opposed to the color of the used mortar to repair the damaged areas. Then we carried out the microscopic analysis. We went into the lab, the chemistry lab, and then we conducted the chemical characterization, whereby we were identifying the salts present in these mortars. Literature states that the salts in the mortar play a role in deterioration. So we had to identify the salts present, the amount that was present, so that when we come back to design now a repair mortar, we know what we're dealing with. Thereafter, the first thing that we did was to carry out the visual investigation, which is that survey I talked about earlier. So from the first picture shows some of the sections on Robben Island, whereby we can see there was an original mortar and then there was a repair mortar. It is quite evident, as you can see on the picture, bottom right. There's 1, 2, 3, meaning there are 3 different types of mortars that were used for restoration of this structure. And most of it, according to the chemical characterization that we carried out, the repair mortar was mostly based on cement material. It was made of cement, not the lime. And most of it is already peeling off. The raised pointing is already peeling off. And I know as we were carrying on with our journey, there's a project intended to rectify this by Sahra. So we're trying by all means to use the compatible materials, because it is evident from the Robben Island that incompatible materials do not last long as when used on these heritage buildings. For some of the results, I just picked a few from my master's thesis. Most of the repair mortars, like I mentioned, were made of cement, while most of the original cementing materials, which is our mortar, was made of lime, and there were additions of seashells. So as we continue to design the repair mortars, we're hoping to use this as a guide to what we are looking for. These are some of the microscopic images. We used a microscope to scan through the mortars, and as we can see, there are shells of different sizes, different colors, and different shapes that were used on the original materials. So in conclusion, we can say material characterization is a great topic of concern when repairing heritage structures. According to the interviews and the literature, it was evident that this topic has not yet received much exposure or hasn't been explored in detail across not just South Africa, but Africa in general. Therefore, there's a need to design a procedure that will assist in restoration of heritage buildings and then produce the compatible repair mortars for heritage structures. This will help integrate the research with the industry in terms of mass production of suitable repair materials. Therefore, for my doctoral research, we are planning to design and then to produce the compatible restoration mortars for the Castle of Good Hope and the Robben Island. In doing so, we are going to select the suitable characterization methods in addition to what we did on master's level. Now we are going in depth into finer details of, now this is the material, this is what's inside this material, this is the components, this is the amount of salts, this is everything. And then after that, we have to quantify now, go into quantification of such components of the original material. Thereafter, we want to formulate a mixed design that will be used now to produce such materials. And then we go in search of the restoration mortars from the existing new or the existing modern materials. And then we select the one that we say this one is compatible for this section. Obviously, we won't have one material for the entire structure. For example, at the Robben Island, we have building pressings which range from 1700, 1800, and 1900. So we'll have different mortar types, different mortar components for different sections at different structures. Thereafter, we'll test our materials, whether they are durable, will they last longer compared as the original ones have already taken us through centuries. That is the proposed doctoral work. I wish to end my presentation with this quote from Dr. Fagan, who's the restoration architect who was responsible for restoring the Castle of Good Hope. During my interview with her, she mentioned that dealing with conservation and restoration work on heritage buildings is similar to treating a patient. You do not follow what is on your mind, you get the history. By history, we mean when was the building built, who built it, using what materials, what is the problem, and what caused that problem. Then you use the material that was used originally. Then you can decide as to what age you are restoring the building to and the reasons for such choice. End of quote. My research, I registered this year in April, and I'm still working on finalizing my proposal. I'll start carrying out the testing and the design by December 2021. And then by May 2022, I hope to have developed such materials that I would say this can be used on the Castle of Good Hope, on the pre-primary school building, or on the Kramat, or on a certain building. And then I hope to finalize my doctoral in November 2020. With that being said, I wish to pass my sincere gratitude to the Cput Center for Postgraduate Studies for funding my master's research and partially funding my doctoral. I also wish to pass my gratitude to my government, the government of Lesotho. It was also partially funding my master's thesis. And the Department of Civil Engineering and Surveying. They have been with me throughout the journey. My supervisors, Dr. Kumai and Prof. Haldenbaum. Without them, none of this would have been possible. And Sahra for opening their doors every time I needed help. Mr. Masinga in particular, thank you for opening your office door that day in June or July. You paved the way for all this. And the South African Institute for Heritage Science and Conservation, they have been with us throughout the journey. They have been giving insights and sharing their expertise. I really appreciate it. And the Castle of Good Hope and the Robben Island staff, they've been very cooperative. And everyone that I might have not mentioned, it was a teamwork, and I really appreciate each and every one of you. That will be all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Loke, future Dr. Loke. That was really, really amazing. I think if anything that's coming out here today is to say that heritage management is not limited to just architecture and town planning in the spatial sense. Heritage management requires an extensive amount of skills, and as Ms. Loke has just shown us, that the skills that we require go from civil engineering to surveying, as shown by Dr. Motala, and 3D modeling, cartography, etc., as was shown by Dr. Palav. And with that said, through our collaborations, we now find that the materials being used to do restoration work at one of our most important World Heritage sites has been incompatible in terms of its durability on the site, Robben Island. And that was only made possible through our collaborative efforts with Cput. So again, if you're an academic institution, if you're in any other type of institute that's concerned with heritage management, the idea is to show you that it's not as limited to just architecture, planning, or history, that it's actually a broad space in which we need chemical engineers to come in, we need civil engineers to come in, we need surveyors to come in, we need a wide range of skills, and Cput has shown us how existing disciplines such as civil engineering and building engineering can be utilized in conservation management in a modernizing South Africa for very real and present issues. So I do thank you for that research. I hope you'll be sticking around. If you have any questions for Mapole, please hold them for our open session. And without any further delay, I would now like to invite Mr. Rian Victor. Rian, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
To the Sahra Cput webinar for 2020. I'm not sure if you're ready to present yet.
Yes, I'm ready to present.
So Rian is going to be presenting the non-destructive testing and analysis of old Mansory walls. Again, heritage management requires a lot of, it's one of those weird disciplines where sometimes you have to destroy in order to fix, and the less invasive a procedure could be, the more beneficial it is for the heritage resource in question. Okay, colleagues, we seem to have lost Rian, but we are currently a bit pressed for time. We may have to hold Rian's presentation for now and move on to part 3 of our program. Rian, are you back?
Yes, Ben, I'm back.
Thank you. Sorry, we just lost you there for a second. I'm
Okay.
going over to you again now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to present my current research. My name is Rian Victor, and I'm a master's student at Peninsula University of Technology under guidance of Dr. Palav. Give me a moment to share my presentation with you. Okay, so my research is on non-destructive testing and finite element modeling of the historical masonry wall. This will be done in collaboration with the South African Heritage Resource Agency. My research is under guidance of Dr. Kumar Palav at Cape Peninsula University of Technology. The contents of my presentation will be the background and significance of the research, where my focus will be on the non-parochial manor house, Tal Josephat in Paarl. My scope of research will be discussed, which includes non-destructive testing and finite element modeling of the structure, while we'll continue to the future research in the area and provide my concluding remarks. Heritage monuments in South Africa and internationally captures the identity of various cultures and provides the history of specific eras, which needs to be protected in all ways possible. And South Africa has a rich heritage which is captured in these buildings and monuments. Over the years, these buildings and monuments have suffered severe degradation due to vandalism, severe weather conditions, natural disasters, and just poor management of the restoration. Therefore, urgent intervention is required to evaluate the current state of heritage structures and to provide suitable restoration methods. This restoration will increase the overall lifespan of the structures and keep them safe for future generations. Moving on to the non-parochial manor house in Tal Josephat Paarl. The house was constructed in the late 1600s with various alterations that was done, with a gable wall dated 1826. The manor house was subjected to vandalism and ultimately suffered severe fire damage in 2019, with the extent of the fire making it impossible to save the manor house and it has been in a ravaged state ever since. Looking at the photos from the site, as you can see in the top left corner, the house was in pristine condition before the fire damage occurred. And moving on, you can see the gable wall. The roof structure is completely destroyed, with the fire destroying most of the house, and the walls are suffering severe cracking and can collapse at any moment, where intervention is required to suitably analyze the structure and to provide a restoration method in continuing the lifetime. The scope of my research is to focus on an engineering assessment of a load-bearing wall of this specific structure, where I will begin with visual inspections and continue with testing that will be done to determine the current state of the load-bearing wall. The non-destructive testing will be done to eliminate the risk of any additional damage to the protected structure, where I will use broken off material on the site that I can calibrate my instruments with permission of Sahra. Using the data obtained from the testing, I will create a digital 3D model of the wall, where the results obtained from the 3D model will further evaluate the current state of the wall and provide possible future scenarios that can estimate what damage can be prevented in the future. My first non-destructive testing method that I will use is the rebound hammer, where the apparatus probe is pressed against the position of the wall that is to be tested. The result indicates the surface level strength of the wall, where this test will be repeated on various positions of the wall to get an overall picture of what the surface strength is of the material. Continuing to ultrasonic pulse velocity, where the apparatus consists of a processing unit, a transmitter and receiver. On the wall to be tested, the transmitter and receiver will be placed on opposite sides of the wall, where the transmitter will send the pulse to the receiver, where the processing unit will measure it in time. We can gather various properties from the material that was tested. This testing is repeated on various positions of the wall, and again providing an overall picture of what the current state of the wall is, and this will indicate the size and position of cracks, including internal voids and damage that is not visible to the eye, and it can be correlated to the strength of the masonry units at each position. Moving on to the finite element modeling, this will be done using PC software, where a 3D model will be created. The material properties that was determined through the non-destructive testing will be used to correctly define the model and estimate the mechanical properties, where an extensive analysis can be conducted to digitally determine the performance of the wall in various scenarios. For future research, this research method can be reproduced on different structures where the need arrives. And this research can also be furthered on the non-parallel manor house to provide a full model of the structure and to analyze the house as a whole. In conclusion, this research can provide valuable information on the current state of the walls of the non-parallel manor house, and it can be interpreted to develop restoration and management plans while keeping the architectural significance intact. This research will also assist Sahra to get an in-depth analysis of the heritage structures from a structural engineering viewpoint. Thank you very much.
That was a very, very nice and succinct presentation, but most importantly, as my CEO sits here, this was a very, very real issue for us when the site was destroyed basically in 2019. As you know, as some of you may know, Non-Paral, one of the structures at Dal Yusufat, which is a Sahra-owned property, as well as a national heritage site, was burnt down in 2019. It is an issue we're currently grappling with, and when Cput came on board for this partnership, we said one of the sites we'd like you to focus on for your students would be Dal Yusufat, specifically Non-Paral. and they've taken it on. We look forward to see the final results of your research, Rian, and I'm pretty sure that on the next platform we have, we'll be presenting to an extensive audience, nationally and internationally. We will have the findings and your final research to present. But beyond that, as I said, I'm sure my CEO will be quite excited about that one, because when that structure was destroyed, it was something that came down on her like a ton of bricks, excuse the pun. But as we move forward, we look forward to the work that is being done. And again, I keep saying this, if you are an academic institution, if you are an institution concerned with heritage management, there are very real opportunities to collaborate with Sahra and Cput. And if you may find interest in any of the projects that have already been presented here today, please do raise that at our open session. And again, we will make these presentations available to everyone that's joining us on YouTube as well as Teams. Without delaying any further, we're going to move to part 3 and the final part of our program today. As you've seen the various research, various types of research that's been done at Cput and at Sahra, the main point is that this research has been done in a very informal basis. And what we want to strive to achieve is to formalize the relationship between Cput and Sahra, which is what we'll be doing now. But beyond that, it's to present to all of you the concept of a sustainable institute for heritage management that will be based at Cput and will be managed by Sahra as well as any other partners that join us. Not necessarily managed by Sahra, but it'll be a collaborative effort between Sahra and Cput, as well as any other partners who we are inviting today to join us on this endeavor. The research that's being done at Cput is applied research. What does that mean? It's research that's not being done merely for academic purposes. It is research that's being done on live active sites and active cases at the moment. So if you have any interest in that type of research, we are looking towards building an institute where all that type of research can be centralized and distributed to a global network. So without any further delay, I would like to invite the DVC for research technology and innovation, for research technology, innovation and partnership from Cput to give us a few words before we move on to the presentation of the Future Heritage Hub. Dr. David Paho is here with us, and he will lead us into our third component. Thank you. I'm handing over to Dr. Paho now. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mwasinga, Advocate Malgas, my colleagues from Cput, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I think as Mr. Mwasinga has stated, Cput's mandate as an academic institution, just academic or research, but also community engagement. And community engagement is also about how do we make sure that our research outputs have the kind of impact that is required in society. South Africa is a developmental state. There's an imperative for all publicly funded institutions to be seen to be contributing, and not just to economic development, but also preserving the heritage that we have, not just for us, for those who come when all of us are gone from this planet. So it's indeed a privilege for me to represent, along with my Cput counterparts, Cput at this very important engagement. And we hope and pray that our collaboration with some and other entities going forward will ensure some of the facilities and heritages that we have in this region will endure well into the future. But even more importantly, we hope this is going to be a blueprint for how Sahra engage with other institutions nationally to preserve other areas of historical interest for all of us going forward. But we are looking forward to this engagement. Hence, we have this memorandum of understanding so that our engagement is not narrow, but will, over time, as our relationship evolves, we'll look at other areas where we can really collaborate with this agency. And we're looking forward, Advocate Malgas, for a lot of future engagements and also from success stories besides producing high quality masters and doctoral students, but also for us to have the kind of impact which our respective institutions are looking to make in South Africa. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paho. As mentioned, this is the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research, Technology, Innovation and Partnership, and the level of representation that has come from Cput and the level of representation that we have here from Sahra shows that we are both institutions are quite committed towards this this task that we are taking upon ourselves in order to build a hub or a institute that will advance heritage management and have the impact, as Dr. Paho has stated, on a national level to the real lives of people. And I've mentioned this hub, I've mentioned this Heritage Institute, and we have not presented that to you. So I'd like to now invite the Executive for Heritage Resource Management at the South African Heritage Resource Agency, Ms. Mama Kamoreng Nkasi. She will be presenting the concept, or basically the idea in which we want to move forward with this level of research and this level of work that's been done. Ms. Nkasi, are you with us? Ms. Nkasi, Komi, are you with us?
Yes, Ben, I'm here.
Thank you very much for joining us. Ms. Nkasi is going to be presenting advancing heritage conservation of the built environment through research, and this is essentially what will lead us into our open discussion about building this Institute for Sustainable Heritage at Cput with any other academic partners. So I'm handing over to you now, Ms. Nkasi. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Right, colleagues, good morning. And we've been waiting for a very long time for this seminar to take place. So we are quite excited. Our partnership with Cput is really something that we are looking forward to. So there are objectives to this seminar, one of which is to sign the MOU with Cput to formalize our relationship. But it is also for us to develop certain frameworks. And one of the frameworks is the development of the concept paper for a Heritage Research and Development Institute. And so the aim here for us is to make sure that heritage, in terms of its offerings, the career offerings, especially today in our country, can be broadened such that the young people do not just go to university, study heritage to work in museums, but they can have actual professions in heritage that a little bit more, I think we need a little bit more professions in heritage. So I have prepared sort of a very brief presentation to get this thinking with you. And Ben, if I can just share it now. That's the presentation. You can see it back. So I have put here the context, legislative context in terms of our legislation, today's seminar. And really one starts from the National Heritage Resources Act. And there you can see that our heritage, in terms of what it's meant to do, it facilitates healing, material and symbolic restitution, and it promotes new and previously neglected research into our rich oral traditions and customs. And so I looked through now in terms of where research is being emphasized. And in our general principles, Heritage resources, we know, contribute significantly to research, to education, and tourism, and they must be developed and presented for these purposes in a way that ensures dignity and respect for cultural values. So that provides you with the legislative context. Sahra, in terms of our functions, we are to promote systematic identification and recording of the national estate. And we do this by the administration or coordination and funding of projects and research programs aimed at the creation of graphic and other records of heritage resources. You have seen Dr. Motala's presentation talks to exactly this. But as Sahra, we must also undertake training programs and relevant activities aimed at conserving and documenting the national estate. I have looked or picked out the picture here. I don't know if any of you can recognize it, but this is the old synagogue in Pretoria where the Rivonia trial took place. The picture on your left was taken in 2011. And the picture on your right on the screen was taken in 1988. Today, this building is very neglected. It's more dilapidated than it was when you see it in 2011. And so there are a lot of heritage buildings in this country that look like this synagogue at the moment, neglected, almost into ruins. So as I go through these pictures, I just want you to thinking about the future of managing heritage structures in a way that most of our communities can benefit. This is also a common picture of the Union buildings in Pretoria. This is a declared national heritage site. But you can also see that the magnificence of this structure will only be so if it continues to be maintained and conserved properly. Here I have taken the pictures of the common Cape Dutch structures. And on your right, you see the streets, the street in Bokap. Bokap is also a national heritage site, and there you can see various styles of building. You have seen this quite a lot today, which is the Castle of Good Hope. Other than just from being a Pentagon, the Castle of Good Hope is built with various materials in it. And so that's a challenge for the conservation, for the heritage conservationists to deal with. And here, a part of our national estate, you see the vernacular architecture. On your right, that's the Basotho hut, and on your left is a Zulu hut. And I want us to look at, I put in this slide where you have a depiction of most fetch rondables and the huts of rural South Africa. And the title that Franco put here is that it's a vanishing tradition. As a heritage institution, this is, I think, the question we need to respond to today within our built environment. So I have presented you with a number of slides showing you different built environment buildings, most of which are of heritage significance. So in the end, then, this is my slide. It's a blank slide where I want you to imagine the heritage inspector in this country, the heritage inspector who have been trained in the Heritage Research Institute, equipped with all the tools that would allow them to go to a building, not just to check that somebody is destroying it and stopping them, but the heritage inspector who is able to test how old the building is, the heritage inspector who is able to test how far the build is deteriorating and be able to advise in terms of how that should be stopped or how that building should be maintained. And so we are looking in the in terms of the Heritage Institute, renovation and development that would allow the young people to get into the built environment studies, engineering, geomatics, and this allow them to mesh this into heritage management. And so we are looking at multidiscipline heritage institute, and the emphasis there is development, research and development, innovation. And I know the young people we have in our built environment unit, we're very much excited about the prospects of such an institute, mostly because it makes the heritage inspector as a profession that will be astute within the profession of built environment. So with those words, where I am asking that from imagining what we can have, the collaboration with an institution such as Cput allows us then to move away from imagining into reality. And so that's a start where we will then begin to build what we have imagined into reality. And since 2018, it's 2020 today, we are really moving forward with this. And so you can all look forward to an imagined heritage conservation and management coming into force. And so, colleagues, I really would like you all to contribute in any way you can. We are looking for more partners in this way from various research institutions, academic institutions. If you look at, for example, Cape Town CBD, imagine each of the buildings in the city that is older than 60 years, each with its own manual of what you should use on it. And that is an opportunity waiting in this context where in South Africa today, unemployment is quite big. And so we must be ready in heritage to respond to these needs. We must play a relevant role in contributing to the development of our economy, and that can only happen through innovation. So let's put our imagination into reality through partnerships like this. The building regulations, you have seen the slides of the vernacular huts. What do we do there? Does the building regulation provide for the upkeep and the passing on of those oral tradition and oral customs? So that is why I'm saying our partnerships go far beyond, because then we need to influence the building standards as well, so that the recognition of heritage contributes in terms of how we can build our economy, but importantly, to build and to equip the heritage inspector in this country. Thank you, colleagues. That is all. Thank you.
Presented what it is that we are all sort of envisioning at the moment, the very basic concept of where we're trying to get to. And I think you've laid out the challenge to all the participants who are here today. Let's dream big, let's imagine. Heritage management in South Africa needs to advance. It can no longer be a basic system that is state-run and is only managed at Sahra. How can the academic institutions contribute to this? How are we going to create the future heritage inspectors that can go to the buildings and advise Sahra as opposed to Sahra always going to the buildings? So these are very, very important questions that you've asked. I think you've basically challenged us all to imagine and to come up with these suggestions of how this institute will look. Dr. Pallav has said we need an institute for sustainable heritage. And I think that part is quite important, sustainable heritage. We need to create a heritage that is not only going to serve its function for our generation, but what about the generation of our grandkids and their kids? And the only way we're going to do this is to expand our member network, but most importantly, is by taking this very, very important first step today of formalizing our relationship with Cput, and beyond that, to show the other academic institutions, any other potential partners, that Sahra is open for business and Cput is open for business. With that said, we have now reached the part of our program, which is an open discussion. If you're on YouTube wanting to participate in this discussion, you will have to go back to Teams. We're not going to have a very long discussion as we have gone over time. I am aware of that. So if you want to put comments in the comment section, please go ahead now. But for the next 5 to 10 minutes, we will be taking names. You can also still comment on YouTube. We are monitoring all your comments and questions there. So if you have any questions before we move on to the official signing of our partnership with Cput, are there any questions at this point from anyone in attendance? Does anyone want to make any comments about what's been presented here today? Now would be the time. I will give about 1 minute to see if there's any hands, and if not, we will move to the next step. So if there's any questions, the hands can come now. I will hand over to Ms. Kamali that can now ask a question. Please go ahead.
Ben, it's actually not a question, it's just a comment on the journey that we've embarked on. And so, you know, with our DVC here and our deans next to me, at Cput, when we merged, we battled a little bit with our identity because we've got a strong heritage in the mandate that we hold, as two separate institutions before we merged. However, you know, when we started off with just one little girl talking to you, Ben, and you're opening your doors for the concept that she had, and one very dedicated doctor there who's been a support, it just opened up this relationship that we've had. And shown the purpose that we have in making a difference, particularly in terms of research, but research that we feel relevant. You've heard Dr. Mutala's anecdotal talks on District 6, and you know, when we talk about engineering, we also want to talk about people, and it becomes quite an emotional journey. You know, Cput, I'm talking about Cape Technicon, has had a very tumultuous relationship with the environment that we sit on. And so we've been trying very hard to rebuild that relationship, to fix all those barriers, and it's not going to be easy. However, we want our young people to feel like they can be part of it and for them to use whatever tools they have in order for us to rebuild this that we have. And you know, it's quite significant when I looked at your mandate as Sahra, where you want to gather information, you want to gather data, so that you can use it nationally and throughout Africa. I mean, Cput is, we want to be the heart of technology, education, and innovation in Africa. I think this is just it. This relationship as was meant to be. And if you think about it, I mean, it's less than 2 years. It's 2 years. We've had a fantastic relationship without any of the strings that we normally have. And we've had a very difficult 2020. To end the 2020 in this fashion, so that we can start now looking at new partnerships, new innovation, pulling in all of our partners at Cput. I mean, I'm sure we can do really good work. And just lastly, a quote from Aristotle, particularly about you and Kumar. It says, pleasure in the job creates perfection in the work. And I just want to thank Sahra for your partnership, for being with us, and I'm sure we're going to do great things for the rest of our academic institutions. I actually challenge them to come and join us and be part of this family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thank you very much, Ms. Kamali. I think that, as you've all heard, she is challenging other institutions to come and join us. For myself personally, it has been a pleasurable experience working with Cput. And what the DVC said earlier was quite important, that this is a blueprint. Sahra has never embarked on this nature of relationship with an academic institution. We've had very informal engagements and we present, etc. But we've never embarked in this bold vision of creating an institute with an academic institution. But I think Cput is an institution that's dreaming very high. They have the same passion that we have, they have the same values that we have, and they have the same vision that we have, that we cannot do this alone. We need our partner networks in order to get there. So I really thank you for that comment, and I'll just see if my CEO wants to respond. I can see she's giving me eyes at the moment. All right, out there, without any hands, I don't see any hands. You are welcome to contribute on the chat. Let me just check. Ify, do we have any hands? Or okay, there's a hand from Dr. Palav.
No, it's fine.
Is it fine?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, there's comments in the chat. Okay. So Dr. Palav will continue to answer your questions in the chat. We have gone over a bit in terms of our program time. I do apologize for that. But I think we are reaching the moment that I have been waiting for the last 2 years. I certainly know Dr. Palav has been waiting for this moment, as well as the other Cput staff. If we can focus firmly on our CEO and the DVC of Cput as they begin to sign a collaboration agreement between Sahra and Cput. This agreement will ensure that Sahra will continue to support Cput in the areas of research and innovation in terms of their students, but most importantly, we are also going to be exploring the feasibility of developing a sustainable heritage institute at Sahra and Cput. As our two most senior members here today go through these documents, I just want you to picture, if you are, again, an academic institution, if you're a social institution, if you're at any level of institute or organization that is concerned with heritage conservation, we hope that you will be sitting here next year signing these agreements with us too, with Cput as well. So for me, this is quite a momentous moment, 2 years in the making. And as we finalize this, I think, as Ms. Kamali said earlier, this in terms of human capital, actual capital, academic capital. So as our two senior members finalize these documents, if you are online, please, you can now unmute your microphone. Please unmute. If you're online, please unmute. Unmute. I know you're used to being told to mute. I'm telling you to do the opposite. Unmute your microphone. You can all unmute. If you are online, You are welcome to unmute. Everyone can unmute at the moment. Don't worry, you won't be required to say anything. You can just unmute as our two senior officials formally bind us in a partnership that will seek to advance heritage management in South Africa. Yeah. Please come join us, CPUT delegation. Please come join us now.
You must unmute.
As mentioned earlier, we have a large delegation from CPUT. Please join us this side. Alright. And Komi, if you could please join us in studio as well. If you're still online, Komi, please come join us in studio. Alright. And with your microphones unmuted, I want you all to give a round. Okay.
Sort of like spatially social distance. Yeah.
Okay, is Komi here? Okay. A night to get this program off the ground. This is Mr. Ntanzi over here. He's been working behind the scenes very hard. And as we take this photo, I want to thank you all out there for joining us here today. As mentioned, Sahra and CPUT are open for business. We welcome you to come join us on this collaborative effort. We will be building a sustainable heritage institute in South Africa. It will be located at CPUT, but it's going to be open to the whole world. And with that said, I want to thank you all again one more time for joining us. DVC, Dean, Assistant Dean, HOD, and Dr. Palav, thank you so much for coming to Sahra today, and to my executive management who have made themselves available in a very busy time for them as well. With that said, the guys behind the scenes working the cameras, thank you very much for all your hard work. And to all of you who have joined us today, we do appreciate you. So with that said, one more round of applause for this very moving performance. And with that said, you are welcome to contact Sahra directly. You can contact myself, Dr. Palav, anyone that you may notice here. Please contact us, email us if you have any ideas, if you have any students doing any research that may result in a collaboration. Please do join us as well. With that said, and without any further delay, we are now officially closing this program. Thank you all very much. We can't shake hands. We're just gonna have to do that all.